Good evening. I'm Councilmember Mitchell Brown. Thank you for attending tonight's Public Safety Committee hearing to discuss the modification of the alarm and charitable solicitation sections of the Columbus City Code. Copies of tonight's agenda are available at the entrance of council chambers. Tonight, the Support Services section of the Department of Public Safety will revisit the proposed changes to the security alarm section of the Columbus City Code that was discussed at a public hearing on February 22nd. They will also outline the proposed changes to the charitable solicitation section of the Columbus City Code. I would now like to invite Public Safety Director Ned Pettis to provide a staff presentation of the proposed changes. Director Pettis.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown, for the opportunity to speak to Council and the public this evening about the proposed changes to the current alarm code for the City of Columbus. The majority of our current alarm code was written in 1998 and has not kept up with current technology or best practices. This code was last updated in 2003 for fees only. The changes represented tonight will, we believe, ease some of the burden of the customer and will facilitate the more efficient billing and collection of fees. Likewise, the charitable solicitations code has not been updated fully for many years. The new revision is much more user-friendly and easy to read for both the general public and city employees who enforce and license the charities. The mission of the license section is to administer and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations relating to licensing and permit requirements for various types of businesses, charitable solicitations, and users of alarm systems. One of my missions as the Director of Public Safety is to make sure that we are armed with the ability to keep the residents of Columbus safe and work more efficiently while best serving the public. Many of the changes that will be presented tonight will fall within that mission. I would now like to turn it over to Ramona Patz, Division Administrator of Support Services, and her staff to give a more comprehensive presentation on the changes that we are asking City Council to support. Thank you.
Administrator Patz.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Director Pettis, and also thank you, Councilmember Brown, for entertaining this hearing today. Let me start by saying that the alarm code was written in the mid-1980s in an attempt to decrease the rapidly rising number of false alarm runs the police force and the fire department were responding to. It was during this time home alarm systems started becoming standard in new homes and easily accessible to existing ones. We all know how drastically technology has changed from the mid-80s up to today. We now have wireless cameras, smartphone, alarm notifications, incredibly sensitive motion detection, and so much more. However, during those 30-odd years, Chapter 597 has only received one major revision, and that was in '04. Just think only about your cell phone and how far we have come since 2004. False alarms unduly burden the limited resources of our first responders. This puts our residents at a greater risk when the police and fire department are not able to respond as quickly to a real emergency because they are tied up with false alarms. The purpose of the changes we are proposing will bring our ordinance closer to the industry standard models and establish some reasonable expectations of alarm users to ensure that they are accountable for the proper use of their alarm systems. As for the charitable solicitations code, it was created in 1984 and has seen few changes over the years, except the updating of fees in 2014. This code currently requires an extensive amount of paperwork be submitted annually to the license section on behalf of charity itself, such as complete IRS tax forms with corresponding schedules, financial statements including balance sheets showing any funds collected and dispersed, articles of incorporation, Secretary of State and Attorney General registrations, and full contracts with any professional fundraisers or solicitors. At times, we have files on these specific charities that could go as deep as 4 inches deep. Because this information is required to register and solicit charitable funds by the state of Ohio, it is redundant for the city to replicate that work. With the proposed reduction of the compulsory financial documents, the need for the charitable solicitation board is also eliminated. This allows the Director of Public Safety to approve the applications for charitable solicitations, which aligns with the rest of the license code. That being said, I would like to introduce License Officer Andrew Bowden, who will cover the license code changes, and then we will hear from License Officer Sagan Pulio with the charitable solicitation code changes. Andrew?
Thank you, Ms. Pats. Councilmember Brown. Today we're going to go over some of the revisions to the Title V, Chapter 597, which handles specifically the alarm users and the alarm dealers. The purpose of the alarm user license is to identify the responsible person who is using an alarm system and to maintain information about this person so they may be effectively contacted by the public safety personnel during an emergency situation. The purpose of the alarm dealer license is to ensure those companies in the business of installing, selling, or monitoring alarm systems meet generally accepted industry requirements for the safety of the citizens of the City of Columbus. The alarm user and dealer license was originally established in the 1970s, and as Administrator Pats just spoke to, the last major revision of the code was 1998, and the fees were last updated in 2003-2004. Some of the major faults to the current code are that they're not adapted for the current technologies. There is no provision for the elderly citizens of the City of Columbus. There's a lack of investigative authority by the license section to both prevent false alarms and to research the cause of the false alarms. The required system standards that are in the current code are out of date due to changing technologies. The alarm dealer requirements are not well worded, and again, it goes back to the investigative authority and the regulation of our office. Along with that, we currently license the alarm agents, which are the employees of the alarm companies. And keeping with an industry practice, that is unnecessary and both a burdensome regulation to those companies and additional paperwork that's not necessary for our staff. Some recent numbers on on false alarm calls. In 2016, there were just over 47,000 total alarm calls to Columbus Police and Columbus Fire. Of those, approximately 2,800 were canceled en route, and those are calls that are not currently billed. Of the 47,000 total calls, 34,000 of them were deemed by first responders to be false in nature. It works out to be about 76.5%. If you take a look at the total number of calls to the Columbus Police Department, and then take out the number of calls that were related for alarm reasons, that's 8.2% of all calls that came into Columbus Police were for for alarm events. Some changes that we're looking to put into the new legislation would allow the licensure of systems within 30 days of the date that the system is installed. The current code requires that to be done before the installation of the alarm, and that's not a realistic expectation. The new code allows age exemption to licensing renewal fees for residents who are over the age of 70. And it will establish a false alarm training class that will allow residents to remove an alarm fee once they take and pass the course. Some additional changes to attempt to cut down on false alarms, an attempt to allow the public to have a better chance to appeal a false alarm report that may be due to a valid cause. We will increase the appeal time from 14 days to 21 days. We will define alarm systems that are primarily operated for video feeds or that are user monitored. This goes with the change in technology where many systems now are monitored by the individual instead of a traditional monitoring company. As we touched on earlier, we will eliminate the alarm agent licenses and the regulations and the burdens that go to the alarm companies with those. We will increase the alarm dealer license from a 1-year license to a 2-year license. And to follow industry standards, we will update the liability policy that alarm dealers must carry to increase it from $250,000 worth of coverage to $1 million worth of coverage. The new code will require a 4-hour battery backup on alarm systems, which is practically industry standard. Most systems are longer than that. This will help prevent false alarms during a power failure. Alarm companies will now be required to test the alarm systems after installation. This will cut down again on false alarms by eliminating the alarms that are not installed properly. And there will be differing rates for different alarm types due to the varied responses by public safety personnel. A business requires more officers and longer to clear. A medic may be required for certain calls. The number of police cruisers, fire apparatus, helicopters, and priority runs require supervision by both police and fire personnel to be submitted on those runs, all at an additional cost to the city. The alarm user license changes are on the screen there. The residential alarm user license will be is currently a $35 charge and will increase to a $45 charge for a new license, but will be decreased to a $25 renewal fee. As we touched on earlier, for our residents over the age of 70, the new alarm fee will be $15 for the license, and we will completely eliminate the renewal fee. For the commercial alarm establishments, the current fee is $35 and will increase to $70 for a new license, but will maintain the $35 fee for a renewal. And the banks will increase to $55 for a new license while decreasing on a renewal rate to $25. The license fee changes are needed to upgrade the technology that is needed to be purchased in order to process the false alarm calls. The current false alarm fees are structured from $0 to $800, and the slight increase will be made from $0 to $1,000, again, due to the needed upgrade of technology that would be needed to purchase to track and process these false alarms. The current alarm agent license is $50 per year. We will be eliminating this from the current code. And the reason is the alarm dealers are already bonding and insuring their employees, and the work for our office to track those employees is unnecessary. The alarm dealer license is currently $200. That will increase to $400 for a new license and be $250 for a renewal license. That license will also increase in time from a 1-year license to a 2-year license. The license fee assists with the software that is needed to be purchased for the tracking of false alarms.
A couple of questions, Mr. Brown. Remember, I asked before, and I'm sure you can respond to this, first and foremost about senior citizens as far as taking classes online as opposed to appearing in person for classes with regards to the false alarm training.
The goal is to offer both an online and an in-person class for the citizens to take. The online class will obviously be available 24/7. The in-person class, we will rotate through different locations throughout the city to give everybody a fair chance to attend one of those courses.
And also, there's the device that a lot of senior citizens have who might fall, and they have these devices they wear around their necks that they press. And is that considered an alarm code device, or?
That is not. We exempt medical alarms from the alarm code. So the medical alarms that go, the life alert bracelets and the neck devices, the arm devices, and the medical panic alarms are not considered under the new code. They're still exempt.
Do you have any idea about the volume of those calls, just for my own edification?
I don't have those numbers with me.
That's all right. Ms. Pats, have you received any resident responses regarding the alarm code changes? Has anyone contacted you about their concerns?
We have not had any citizens contact us about any concerns. We did reach out to the Columbus Chamber of Commerce to see if there was any input from the industry and the community regarding this code change. We had some information somebody respond back to us that they had some concerns. And as of last week, Grant Ames and myself both asked for information so we could be prepared for this hearing, and they never sent us anything. So I think we've done our due diligence.
Given that, maybe just reach out once more before this legislation is presented to council, just to be certain, certainly so when the director has to present in front of the full council, we can acknowledge that we made a second attempt to deal with the chamber. Okay?
I'll contact him in the morning, sir.
Has the proposed change been altered since the first hearing in February?
They have not been altered.
Is there any other additional information that you wish to impart with regards to the code changes?
No, sir, thank you.
There are no individuals from public speakers at this particular time. I would say if members of the community have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to contact the Department of Public Safety. Pardon me? Charitable code, okay. We still have the charitable code to finish up.
Councilmember Brown, I would like to introduce Sagan Pulio. She's a licensed officer from the license section. She'll be doing the presentation today for charitable solicitations.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Pats and Councilmember Brown. The following are the proposed revisions to Title V, Chapter 525, Charitable Solicitations Code. This code was originally established in the early 1980s, specifically 1984. Minor changes were made in the 1990s and then the early 2000s. The largest change was made in 2014 with the fee increase. The current code faults are the unnecessary charitable solicitations board, the redundancy of the state licensing processes that we do duplicate at this time, the unused renewal schedule that we also do not follow, it's not left for the technological advances in the social media, the way that we solicit and communicate. And also it's confusing in its language to the public as well as members of the city. The major changes are the elimination of the Charitable Solicitations Board. This would put the authority back with the Public Safety Director or his designee. We have a great difficulty filling the board. The 5 positions are hard to come by, and we also do not have a quorum. Without a quorum, we do have to hold the applications until the board is able to meet. By holding the applications pending approval, we hold 50 to 70 applications at a time. Those applications go past their expiration date into the unlicensed or expired status, and they're not technically supposed to solicit during that time, although they have submitted their paperwork. Their application is still waiting in our office. We will streamline the renewal process. We will reduce the duplication of the paperwork that they already need to turn in at a state level. This will allow our office to move closer to being completely paperless, as well as the electronic submissions that the charitable applications can be done. We would like to eradicate the permit renewal schedule that is in the code. The first letter of a corresponding charity is set to expire and be renewed at a certain month out of the year. That causes a problem when their license is submitted a different time of the year, and they lose either a month or they have longer than a month in their license period. We would like to add in the social media clause the electronic communication and use of technology as a form of solicitation. And we would like to simplify the wording as to make it simpler for the charity itself, as well as all members of the license section in the city of Columbus. And here are the lists of the current charitable solicitations licenses and their corresponding fees. These fees will not be changed at this time, and they will remain the same. Thank you.
Director Pats, I guess the question for me still is about street solicitation for charitable activities. Has there been any changes to that? We have a number of people who stand out in the middle of the street trying to solicit. Has there been any impact on that at all?
Councilmember Brown, I'd like to answer that question. We have not changed anything with the roadway solicitations. Those are still free of charge. They do need to submit those at least 30 days in advance. We are going to be working on additional enforcement for those because we do understand that not all of the people who are standing in the street are licensed, but we did not change anything in the current code regarding roadway solicitations, that it is still allowed, it is still free of charge, and they do need to submit that paperwork 30 days prior to the event. They are only allowed to submit one application per year, and it's only good for 2 days per year, sir.
Thank you. I know that there's been some issues associated with that, with a number of people who are trying to get engaged in roadway solicitation.
Yes, sir.
And if they have not filed the appropriate paperwork for law enforcement to do the job of addressing that problem.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other issues to come before this particular committee at this particular time? Director?
No, Councilmember Brown.
Okay. Then, since we've had a circumstance here today where we have dealt with the issues associated with alarms and with charitable solicitation, again, I would state that if members of the community have any further questions or concerns, please feel free to contact the Department of Public Safety at 614-645-8210 or my office at 614-645-4605. That being said, I would like to thank the community for their engagement in providing you information and updating these particular codes. Again, they've been around for a long, long time, and it's reasonable for us to update them, especially given social media. And I think it's important for the senior citizen community because, again, our senior citizens are growing at an alarming number, no pun intended with that, and our ability to educate them is very, very important. That in and of itself, from closing, I would like to thank Director Pettis and his staff, Administrator Patz and Bowen and Puello and others. I would like to recognize my staff, Denise Friend Foster and Grant Ames and John Oswald, for their assistance in preparing for this evening's hearing. Following tonight's public hearing, our City Council staff and the Department of Public Safety will draft an ordinance to include the proposed changes in the City Code. This ordinance will then be presented to my council colleagues for approval. Again, if anyone has any questions, they can feel free to contact Public Safety or my office. There being nothing further in front of this particular committee, I wish to thank you all for participating and have a good evening.